thing is, until you can erase 3 Februaries, shut up. Bang! Quality over quantity. LeBron has beaten some of the best competition in NBA history. He's the GOAT emoji. I will not cuss. I will not cuss. I will not swear. I will not swear.
Where sports is the base, life and fun are the results. This is the Brian Snow Show.
I will not cuss. I will not cuss. I will not swear. I will not swear. I will not cuss. I will not swear. I will not swear. I was like, oh, hi. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Brian Snow Show. Man, I need to just jump right in and explain what happened earlier this afternoon. As I admitted aloud, I had 3 of these full of coffee, and I was flying right along. Morning show went great. I got a full night's sleep. I was flying right along, and I was doing fine. And then that happened, and my body just decided, you know what? We are as mad as hell, and we can't take this anymore. And I simply crashed. That's all. I was tired. I felt it. The first 2 breaks that producer Drew and Sensei Drew took, I just got tired. I mean, I sat here in the chair and I slept for 3 minutes, but I quickly got back up and was rolling along in the other segment. And I decided at that time I couldn't hold it, and I went over here to the couch here in the office and I passed out. That is all that happened. So an adjustment in schedule for Sports Senseis will be forthcoming. I've talked to Drew. I have to. Is that Pumpkin? Is that you, Pumpkin? Yeah, 2 of my 3 kitties are here in the house, and I think they're gonna somewhat join me for the afternoon show. Speaking of joining me, producer Clark will join me as we talk all things CFL. He'll join at the bottom of the hour. But that's what happened. I simply crashed, and I couldn't. My body just couldn't hold up anymore. And believe me, I tried. I really, really, really tried, but couldn't hold it. And that's what happened. There's a subject that I brought up during the morning show with Chris Bass that I'm going to somewhat talk about, but at the same time, I'm just going to lay some praise on the one woman who saved my life. And that one woman is Jody K. Snow, my wife. Were it not for Jody, I simply wouldn't be here. That's as simple as it gets. I wouldn't be here because she came into my life in 2018 and changed everything. Man, did she change everything. I mean, there were times I thought of checking out. Plain and simple. Because I didn't think anyone, wanted me or wanted to love me. And then Jody showed up and said, I do. She basically said, I do. And I said, okay. And I'm thinking, all right, now what? But as we celebrate, I'm gonna cry because y'all know how much I love Jody. As we celebrate our anniversary this month, as well as her birthday in less than 2 weeks, I continue and will continue to heap praise on my beautiful, beautiful wife. I would not be here without her. And the subject that I brought up during the morning show was interracial relationships. Why did I bring that? Well, it was a backup subject off of what Chris Bass was talking about, and I will interject mentality into this also, and that'll make Victor smile. Men are under attack, period. for whatever decision they make and whatever they want to do. And it's a system designed to fail. Hold on a second, y'all. All right, Pumpkin. There you go, buddy. On. Okay. Sorry about that. I had to let one of the kitties out. But it's a system that's designed for people to fail. More to the point, it's a system designed for men to fail. And as I mentioned this morning, one of the most taboo things, simply put, is interracial dating. But you know something? I really don't care anymore. I don't care. I don't freaking care. I never have and I never will care. And to answer the question of a lot of people, we used to live in North Carolina, lived there for 2 years. To answer the question of a lot of people, and thank you, Victor, for this, praise be to the legendary Dr. K, she means everything to me. I was unsure. I had a moment of uncertainty. Christmas night, 2018. And while Jody was asleep, I went in the, we were living in Terre Haute at the time. I went in the kitchen and I called Cole. I called Cole Sports and I was crying because I didn't know what to do, what to think, because there was a lot of backlash. There was a lot of backlash from some of the residents of Terre Haute and some of the folks at Indiana State, where she worked once upon a time. So Cole virtually yanked me aside and said, I have 2 questions for you. All right, lay them on me. Number 1, does she make you happy? Oh, hell yeah. Number 2, does she treat you good? Yes. Then what the hell are you worried for? And at that point, Cole sounded like my late father. I got my answer. I mean, from the beginning with Jody, I was all in. Don't get it twisted, but there were points when we first got together, I was unsure of what to do and how to handle things because I knew there would be a lot of backlash, especially in society, with me being with someone opposite my race. But I never cared about race in the first place. I never have and I never will. That's me. That's just me growing up, man. That's just me growing up. I didn't care. And to this day, I don't care. I never have cared. What the hell am I going to care for? And that's that. I'll tell y'all a story that I've told on different channels, but I will tell it here. One afternoon, Jody and I went to lunch. We were in North Carolina. We went to lunch and y'all know, we have fun wherever we go. But we went to this place called Cookout. And my wife heard the voice, which was a black woman, speak ye the truth and shame the devil. That's how I feel. And Jody must have detected something that I didn't because she immediately turned to me and said, get your wallet out, quick. I said, what? What's going on? Boy, was she ever right. She was right. I'm going to make an adjustment here with my camera. Man, she called that right when it happened. Sorry for that. And yes, Victor, it was a burger place called Cookout. Like I said, Jody called that immediately and said, get your wallet quick. I didn't know what was going on, but I got my wallet. And then I pulled up to the window. We pulled up to the window. Jody was driving and saw the look on her face. And again, this is a black woman who was like this. I'll give you 100 guesses as to what popped in her mind, and I will lay this in on you. All of them are correct. I won't say any of them here. I'll say them on Snowman Unfiltered. But as I said, I'll give you 100 guesses to what she was thinking. And we're talking about the person who took our order and checked us out. Not one guess of what they were thinking would be wrong. Not one. Why am I telling this story? Because A, I felt it in my heart when I had Chris Bass on this morning on Snowman in the Morning. And B, I want y'all to get an understanding of what we go through, not go, of what we go through the states that we've lived in, which is Indiana and North Carolina. I indeed have a blended family, and I love every person within this blended family, my children, my grandchildren, and of course, my wife. And Victor, I'm going to make you laugh and cringe at the same time, but the look on this woman's face reminded me of Uncle Lori, or Uncle Foot, as we often called her. If I'm lying, I'm flying. That's not the only incident we went through. I'm just highlighting the best ones. Here's one. We went to Denny's in Henderson, North Carolina. And there were 2 occasions we went to Denny's and got discriminated against. Hell, if y'all listen to my voice and hear how I speak, I've been discriminated against my whole life, but I took it as fuel. The first time, this is when I want to say a week after we got to Henderson, Jody looked at me and said, look, we need a night to ourselves. Hey, no complaints. Where do you want to go? Let's go to Denny's. Let's have some dinner and let's have fun. No problem. We did. Went to Denny's there in Henderson. And we were just having a ball. We were just cracking up every time. We were just cracking jokes. Just having fun, being us. Really being us. I mean, nothing to worry about for a couple of hours. We were just having fun. We were just being us. Then this happened. Jody gets ready to check us out, and I had to run to the bathroom. So I ran to the bathroom. I came back, and when Jody went to pay the bill to check us out, 4 black women came in, looked at her, looked at me, and I'll let y'all finish the thought. And I'll say again, I'll give y'all 100 guesses, and not one of them would be wrong. Not one. That was the first time we went. The second time we went, we were seated, and the server that took our order, A, was a black woman, and B, kept walking past us. I'm telling these stories to highlight what Jody and I have been through in 5 years. These are just highlights, y'all. These are just highlights. And again, I'll give you 100 guesses. I'll give y'all 100 guesses. And good afternoon to Hawk TV, David 3000, Victor Locke, and Ryan McCoffey. If you've seen pictures online of me and Jody, y'all know what we go through on both sides of the ball. On both sides of the ball. I mean, she took our order on the run. She brought us our food and was on the run. Here's the thing. Here is, and Victor, you're going to love this one. Here's the kicker. That same server went and spent time at every other table in her area except ours. How's that? I'll say it again. This server went and spent time at every other table except ours. What? Every other table. I'll keep saying it. And you're right, Victor. This is a Steve Harvey with a little Bishop Bullwinkle sprinkled on it. This server, who had a nasty attitude from jump, went and spent a little time at every other table being personable except ours. Brought our food and jet. Took our order and jet. Brought our drinks and jet. No personability whatsoever. I hope I said that right. So we both were like, screw this. We're not coming back. You know, we had more success blending in with people if we went to Durham, if we went to Raleigh, if we went to Charlotte, if we went to Chapel Thrill, aka Chapel Hill, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Wilmington, because that was our first big trip when we drove from Henderson to Wilmington to get some fish. And believe me, I got so many more adventures. So many more adventures. But I will do all of those I'll do all those at another time. And it's crazy to think, for a lot of people, it's crazy to think that Jody and I are still tight. Because I can tell you from experience, and Victor can back me up here, there were a lot of people that expected us to fail. A lot. Well, nah. All that did, plus the health problems we both have gone through, especially me battling cancer, all it did was bring us closer together. So, nah. Take that, haters. Back in a minute. The thing is, until you can erase 3 Februaries, shut up.
Where sports is the base, life and fun are the results. This is the Brian Snow Show.
The original Think Drink is back. Level up with proven ingredients formulated to crush your competition. No gimmicks, no jitters, no messing around. Just high potency results that keep you moving day or night. There's a new nerd in town, and we came to play. Nerd Focus, smarter than energy.
One of the great things about ordering meals from Mother of Macros is that you can do it from the comfort of your own home. Click the national or local delivery link to access the menu, and we'll ship the meals right to your door. We understand you won't always have time to plan, shop, prepare, and cook to provide healthy nutrition for your family, so the process is simple and saves you hours. We know you're busy, so our meals are professionally prepared and packaged. You only need to heat them up and enjoy. We provide macro-balanced, delicious meals chock full of fresh, local ingredients with none of the stuff you don't want to eat. Plus, our menu changes every week, keeping your taste buds wanting more. We take care of your meals so you can worry about everything else on your list. Mother of Macros.
This planet has been great to me. It's given me gifts that I can't even explain. It's given me adventures and memories I'll never forget. And Battleborn, I think, has given me the opportunity to go beyond and give something back. How can I be a better custodian to this planet and the place I live? That's where I am with Battleborn. Let's make the planet a better place.
Sure. We all know ghosts exist.
I'm getting a really dark energy.
But if you trying to hunt them, there's one simple rule you gotta follow.
What the hell was that? Guys, hurry up and get the hell out of there.
No matter what happens, stay calm.
Oh, Jesus! Oh, my God! Oh, hell no!
Hey, Matt, what's up?
Okay, that's a balloon. It looked like it was a demon. Wow.
We be fly for nothing. We be fly for nothing. OEO, mucho. Run it.
So where are we going?
A haunted pinata shop.
What?
An old Korean brothel.
Oh, Lord.
A funeral home in Compton?
Yeah.
You don't like us, do you?
It's business.
I get fly for nothing. I roll with OPO.
Official paranormal operations, baby.
We got infrared cameras set up all over the place.
Whatever's in there, we're gonna get to the bottom of it. Y'all down with it?
What the is this? I have robot strapped to my abdomen.
What the hell is going on?
Are you with us right now?
You okay?
Guys, we got action.
I feel like something's in here.
Don't nobody want you with us.
Man, they got some going down in there.
It could be a succubus.
Suck you, huh?
It's an energy that feeds upon you in a sexual way. Like,
Not with the teeth like that?
oh, yeah.
We be fly for nothing.
All right, investigation's over. This bitch is haunted as
Welcome to those of you watching on CSTV, serving Northern Nevada and streaming around the world. Our West Coast audience is going to be thrilled that we're going to include the CFL in our coverage. And to help out, here's one of my chief officers on the CFL. That's producer Clark in the house, back after a long, busy stint for both of us. My brother, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Did you see what the Lions did last night? Vernon Adams, and we talked about this at the end of last season, Vernon Adams had to come in with an attitude of picking defenses apart. Save the interception. He picked Calgary. He tore Calgary to shreds last night.
Yeah, definitely. Vernon Adams is a guy who's had a really, really interesting career path. And Brian, last year when we were talking about the CFL throughout the season, his name came up a lot, but for a lot of different reasons. He's been a guy who's always had that talent. He's always had the ability. He has the arm. He has the athleticism. He seems like a great teammate. He's always been that guy, but he's always been in the wrong place at the wrong time, it seems. A couple years ago, he was in Montreal, rejuvenated that franchise as a starting quarterback, but lost his job. And then kind of just nothing really happened from there. He went to BC as a backup quarterback to Nathan Rourke, who's now in the NFL. He had an amazing season last year.
He did.
And there's a lot of questions about Vernon Adams. He's been around, but he's never quite cemented himself as that guy. Can he be that guy? And last night, I think, was a bit of a message from him to the rest of the league to just say, hey, I'm here and I can do this and I got this team on my back and let's go. He was 27 for 35 last night with 288 yards and 2 touchdowns, which, to a lot of American listeners or viewers who might, be accustomed to 400-yard games and 3 or 4 touchdowns as a big game. This was a big game. 288 yards and 2 touchdowns is a big game. Plus he had a rushing touchdown as well. So this guy's the real deal, and he's going to put this team in a great position to win each and every week. I think BC has a really good shot at maybe surprising a few people with how high they finish in the Western Division in the CFL. It all starts with Vernon Adams, and then it goes from there. They got Dominique Grimes, who had a great game last night, 8 catches for 118 yards, 2 of those being touchdowns. He seems like he's the guy, and he's been around the league for a while as well. Very talented receiver. And they got some weapons out there. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Now, on the other side, we talked about how good BC and Vernon Adams was. The Calgary Stampeders didn't look like themselves at all in week 1. Their quarterback, 20 completions out of 36, only 56%. If you're only completing 56% of your passes in the CFL, that's a rough day at the office for you.
Indeed.
We said Vernon Adams was 77%. With the amount of space out there on the field, because again, in case some people out there aren't familiar, the CFL field is wider, it's longer, there's more space to do stuff. So to have a lower than 70% completion rating isn't usually looked at as a good thing in this league. You should be clicking pretty good. And he had a rough night. Jake Maier had a rough night. This is his third year now in the CFL. He has the full reins of that franchise now in Calgary after Bo Levi Mitchell moved on, and we'll get to that probably in a sec. He's a long-time starting quarterback there. Jake Maier showed signs of great promise last year, and I'm not going to write him off after one game, but definitely not the best night from the Calgary Stampeders overall last night.
It's the post Bo Levi Mitchell era in Calgary, and that game was at McMahon Stadium last night. Did it seem like the Calgary offense minus Bo Levi was out of sync, and it's going to take a bit for Jake Maier to really tighten this team up offensively?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that Calgary has been a very dominant rushing team over the last, I'm going to say, decade, Brian. The last decade, they've kind of been the standard setters for the rushing game in the NFL, in the CFL. Obviously, other running backs have had huge years outside of Calgary, but the Stampeders often define themselves by their rush first, and then they attack you with that pass. Because Bo Levi Mitchell was he was that guy who could just pick you apart at will. But they always establish the run. They have forever. And last night, they only rushed the ball, by my math, 13 times.
Yep.
And that's, a lot less than BC did, that's for sure. But also, Kadeem Carey, who's one of the premier running backs in this league, he only had 7 rushes for 39 yards. That's just a very low number for him. He's usually a 100-yard type of guy. He's very dynamic. He's explosive. And their backup, Peyton Logan, who had a really good year last year, also only rushed the ball 3 times. And, I was talking to a Stampeders season ticket holder this morning. It says three rushes for 34 yards. You think as a backup, that's not terrible. But 18 of those yards came on the last play of the game when nothing mattered. So you look at it that way, and it changes your perspective. They didn't rush the ball well. Didn't give Jake Maier much of an option there. And yes, they definitely will have to figure something out. And I'm not, again, 1 week, I'm not going to write off a franchise like Calgary.
Right.
But they definitely showed a lot of signs of maybe early concerns, if that's a conservative way to put it.
And on the defensive side for Calgary, allowing BC, Calgary had the ball first, marched right down the field, but Paredes, who's been so accurate, 90% rate, missed the field goal. And BC took full advantage, marched right down the field, and stuck it in the end zone for a quick 6-0 lead. All that on the shoulders of Vernon Adams. If y'all go back and watch the tape last night, Vernon Adams just seemed unstoppable. But if you look at the Calgary defensive side, there are no, and I'm not saying this because of a lack of talent, I'm saying from what I saw with the game, there are no leaders on defense for Calgary, and no one put the game on their shoulders and said, look, ride with me, we will figure this out, especially after halftime when BC just came out and marched the ball up and down the field on Calgary, and that last field goal gave them a 10-point advantage when it looked like Calgary was going to get back in the game.
Yeah, definitely some interesting times in Calgary. Again, I said their identity has been rushing the ball for the last 10 years, even though they had a guy like Bo Levi Mitchell. Their other identity is that their defense is always among the top in the league. And they've had a lot of turnover because we've always compared, in Saskatchewan here, we've always compared the Stampeders to the New England Patriots in that, their leader, so to speak, John Hufnagel, he's always been the type to let a guy go who might be at the top of his game, but you let him go 1 year early, maybe he'll have a good year or two somewhere else. But rather than holding on to a guy until he's too old or can't do it anymore, they will let them go 1 year early. And that's been happening quite a bit over the last couple of years in terms of turnover for Calgary. They've had a lot of really, really high-end players that they have, let go 1 year early, so to speak.
Right.
And I think that turnover is just going to take a little bit on the defense to kind of catch up to itself. I think there's a lot of great playmakers on that defense. I look at a guy like Cameron Judge. He's a very good linebacker in this league. He was with the Saskatchewan Roughriders for a few years. Very, very athletic. He's a freak. He can get everywhere on the field. He can rush the passer. He can drop back in coverage. He can do a whole lot of stuff. Micah Always, one of my favorite players in the CFL. He's a linebacker as well. So they have a lot of talent. They have a good defensive line. They have good linebacking core. They always have good cornerbacks. They've never had a problem with their secondary. I think it's just going to take some time for that. Just those couple of new faces to kind of gel and mesh, and that defense should be among one of the better ones again as we progress into this season. It's a long season, 21 weeks.
It is. It is. Speaking of the West Division, the defending West Division champs open defense of that title tonight when they host the Hamilton Tiger Cats, 8:30 kickoff at IG Field. If you're Winnipeg, having the Grey Cup in your hands and then suddenly Toronto snatching it off of the effort of backup Chad Kelly.
Yeah.
and having that snatched away from you, A, that left a very sour taste in their mouth, and B, I wouldn't be surprised if it starts tonight their march to a 4th straight division title with this game versus Hamilton.
Yeah, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Vengeance Tour, I'm not looking forward to as a fan of the team next door to them. They've been the team now. I said it just a minute ago. Calgary is usually the team that lets go of somebody 1 year early rather than 1 year late. Mm-hmm. Winnipeg's the exact opposite. They've been keeping this team together. They've been keeping the group together now for 4 or 5 years. They have some of the best players in this league on this roster. They have the consensus best quarterback right now in Zach Collaros. They have the consensus best defensive end in Willie Jefferson. They have the consensus best middle linebacker in Adam Bighill. They have multiple weapons at receiver. They have a great running game. I could go on. One of the best offensive linemen in Stanley Bryant, and also the rest of the group, one of the best groups. So, we talk about, last year, one of the biggest things we talked about throughout the season was just how good Winnipeg was top to bottom, and you can't make a mistake against these guys because they will just bury you. They will bury you. And Hamilton is coming in now. They've made one of the bigger offseason splashes in bringing in Bo Levi-Mitchell, which we talked about with the Calgary Stampeders earlier. So Bo Levi is there now. And not only does he want to, make a statement for his new fan base, Winnipeg's been one of his biggest rivals for years in the West with Calgary. So he wants to beat those guys just as bad as almost anybody in this league, and to do it in week 1 on the road. I know that Bo Levi is just itching to get on that field tonight and get this game going. So, again, I think Winnipeg, they continue to be the cream of the crop, although they did lose last year in the Grey Cup, like you kind of mentioned earlier. Toronto, oddly enough, not playing this week. This is the Grey Cup champions not playing in week 1. Very weird decision. But here nor there, Winnipeg, I think, is they still feel like they are the champions, I think. In that city, in that fan base, on that team. I think they still have that mentality. They have mostly the same group. They've added pieces here and there where they need to. And, Winnipeg could be one of those teams where, a 15-win season isn't out of the question for me, out of 18 games. So this could be a special year. And a big way to do that would be to shut the mouth of Bo Levi-Mitchell in week 1. I use my good pal Rod Peterson's call, Bo Levi, shut your mouth. This could be one of those nights.
God, I love Rod Peterson. I love the Rod Squad. Y'all had a great show today. But Bo Levi-Mitchell in Hamilton, as you mentioned, his biggest rival is Winnipeg. But there's a fellow in Winnipeg besides Zach Collaros who I fell in love with by the name of Dalton Schoen, who showed out last year. And there were rumblings at the start of the season of how good this kid can be. I guarantee you no one expected that to happen last year for Dalton Schoen.
No. And, this happens probably once or twice a year around the CFL. And that's one of the charming things about the CFL, right? Is, these guys coming up from the States or wherever they're coming from, they're all very, very good. But none of us know their names until they make their name for themselves. And Dalton Schoen last year was probably the best example of that across the CFL, where he kind of came out of nowhere. He wasn't necessarily a starter at the beginning of the year. He wasn't taking anybody's job, But he
Right.
made himself very on, like he put the league on notice right away and just kept performing. And that's one of the biggest things about the CFL, especially when it comes to receivers, is that if you can just be consistent and just catch the ball when it's thrown to you, you'll probably make yourself a good career in this league. If you can stick around, if you're athletic and you can run good routes and you're smart and you can just catch the ball, you don't have to be the fastest, you don't have to be the tallest, but if you can just stay consistent and be that guy, you'll have a good career in this league. And it's always good to see like I said, every year there's always one or two, probably maybe even three some years that pop up and just take the league by storm. And he was a great example of that last year. Such a fun guy to watch, and a good story behind him as well. So yeah, he's one of those guys. And with Winnipeg, like I said, they have a lot of weapons, but he definitely eases that a little bit because of how good he's been.
Dalton Schoen in his second year with the Bombers out of Kansas State, the former Wildcat. Let's go to Saturday, 7 p.m. kickoff at Percival Molson Stadium, the Ottawa Redblacks and the Montreal Alouettes. A couple of teams that need to really get themselves together. The Montreal Alouettes welcome a new quarterback, Cody Fajardo. You're familiar with him with his time with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. That's a question for you in the chat. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's take a look at the Ottawa Redblacks. How do they pick themselves back up after a season where they just got absolutely pulverized?
Yeah, that was a big thing with them last year. Every week we had this chat about Ottawa just not quite being able to find their footing, and never quite got themselves over the hump last year in terms of just seemed like every game they were a step behind, or they were, down early and couldn't come back, or whatever it happened to be with Ottawa last year. And this year, they have made quite a few changes. They've changed some of their coaching staff. They've changed a lot of their personnel. They've brought back a couple of different quarterback options. Obviously, Jeremiah Masoli, but he's not going to be ready this week. He had an injury, I think, in camp, so he's going to be out for a couple weeks. But Nick Arbuckle is there now. There's some storylines with Nick Arbuckle because he was brought to Ottawa. They let him go, and now he's back. So, I hope for him. He's a great guy. We've had him on our show, on the Rod Peterson show, a couple of times. He's a great guy. So I hope he can kind of, get this team off on a good footing to start the year. And with Ottawa, they have so many good people in that organization that we've met over the years, or that I know from past experiences. So many great people, and I hope this is the year that they could maybe figure out how to take that next step as a team, because they've just been struggling now for a couple of years after they had such a good run in the mid-2010s there, obviously winning a Grey Cup, but also just having a lot of good seasons. So I'm hoping that this is the year that they can get that fan base a little bit more confident in what they got going for them. They have some players there. Now it's just a matter of putting it together. On Montreal's side, like you said, Cody Fajardo's in town now. He used to be the Rough Rider quarterback here in Saskatchewan for a good 3 or 4 years, whatever the number was. And, he was a very fun quarterback to cheer for. He was a guy that you wanted to win. He's a very likable guy. He feels like a good leader. He feels like he'll do whatever it takes to win. So with Montreal, what they got a winner. They got a guy who wants to win and can put his team in a position to win almost every single week. He's been that guy for years. How he's going to mesh with his new team is going to be very interesting. Montreal lost their best receiver last year, Geno Lewis. He's now in Edmonton, and we'll talk about him next probably. And he's a very, very good player, very good player. And they've made a couple other changes as well. So it's going to be a matter of, this is an interesting week for this game specifically, Ottawa versus Montreal, to start the season, because these are probably the two teams with the most question marks, I would say, going into the season, just because there's been so many changes, and they're out in the East where it's kind of wide open every year. So we'll see. It's going to be it's an interesting way to start the season, because both these teams really, really want a W to start the year after how last year went for them. So one of these teams is going to feel really good about their season coming out of this week, and one of these teams is their fan base is going to start asking questions. It's just how it's going to be.
To the chat we go, and Ryan has this question for you. Will Cody Fajardo be successful in Montreal now that he has a reliable run game and an offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, he does. That's a very good point. And the offensive line last year in Saskatchewan brought nothing but what am I going to say? Jaw-dropping, terrible results. They couldn't.
It was
get anything
awful,
going.
man. It was awful.
Yeah, it's been that way for a couple of years, but last year just kind of put the icing on the cake, so to speak, in a bad way. It wasn't very good icing. So this year, yeah, he's going to Montreal. And the funny thing is, Ryan, thanks for the question, by the way. Hi, Ryan. The funny thing is that, you know, last year, a lot of questions got brought up about Cody Fajardo's relationship with Jason Moss, the offensive coordinator.
Yes.
Jason Moss gets fired because the year went so poorly. Jason Moss gets hired in Montreal as the head coach, which, you know, he's a great coach. I'm not going to say anything bad about Jason Moss. He's a great coach. He's been in the CFL for years. He deserves another chance because he had a chance as a starting coach. That's not what you call him, as a head coach. And it didn't go so well the first time, but he's paid his dues and now he gets another chance. Very well deserved.
Good.
But we thought, you know, maybe the whole relationship with Fajardo and Moss didn't go well. Who does he bring in? Cody Fajardo. He brings in. So either we were all mistaken and they had a great relationship, or he's putting himself in a really bad position to start the season and there's new franchise that he's taking over as head coach. So we're going to find out really quickly whether they're on the same page and we were just mistaken last year, or, you know, if this is just not going to work. We'll find out pretty soon. I don't think it's going to take very long. But yeah, Montreal historically has had a better offensive line the last couple of years, and on top of that, they do have some of the most, you know, they have William Stanback. You know, William Stanback has been probably the most, I would say he's the best power back that this league has right now, outside of maybe Andrew Harris, but Andrew Harris is getting up there now. And William Stanback has just come in and, you know, he's had some injury issues and some other things going on, but he has always been just a very hard to tackle kind of power running back. And it's going to be exciting to see how Fajardo utilizes him, maximizes him, and then how that might affect the passing game as well. So we'll see. But Montreal, like I said, Montreal, Ottawa, this is the type of game where there's a lot of question marks around both teams. And after week one, it'll either be jubilation on one side and it's going to be, you know, a lot of concern on the other side.
And now we finish the weekend, the opening weekend, with this one, 7 p.m. on Sunday. The Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Edmonton Elks. And immediately we go to the Elks, snatching Geno Lewis. How much will number 87 help their passing game?
Yeah, well, there's that. And on the other side, Saskatchewan got longtime Elks receiver Darrell Walker on their side. So now Geno Lewis, I met him in the offseason. He was in Regina for some stuff. So I got to actually meet the guy. His confidence level is contagious. I felt like I was more confident in my football abilities just being around Geno Lewis last year. And I'm not a football player by any stretch. I used to be, but not anymore. But this guy, you know, sky's the limit for this guy. If he can be in the right system with the right quarterback, which could be the case in Edmonton. You know, it was so funny. We were talking about how good he was last year. And I was with Nick Lewis. He was also with us. Nick Lewis is the all-time CFL reception king. He leads the league in all-time receptions. So we were talking, Nick Lewis was kind of egging him on a little bit to see, you know, you did really good this year. And he's like, no, I didn't. And we were like, you had 1,000 yards. You had all these, you know, accomplishments. You're most outstanding player candidate. Yeah, but I'm just getting started. That was barely scratching the surface. You know, that was the kind of stuff we were getting from him. And to hear his confidence level in his own ability, even though he's been in the league for a few years, to hear him say that he's barely even scratching the surface. Edmonton fans need to be over the moon excited. Go buy his jersey. Like, this is the kind of guy that you love as a fan base, because he comes in, and with the Elks being, I don't want to say bottom feeders, but they have had a couple of rough years. They haven't won a home game in a couple of years, Brian. I mean, the fan base, the fact that their fan base is still sticking with them after this last couple of years, they deserve something. Now, I'm saying this as a Rider fan, and they're involved in this game. I would love to see the Elks win this game, and I'm not cheering for them by any stretch. I'm actually cheering against them, but I think it would be a really good start for them. They're doing everything right on the business side. I've really appreciated how they've tried to re-engage their fan base again after a couple of tough years with COVID and everything, and then coming in, and now they haven't won a home game in a couple of years. Like, that's tough. and they're doing guaranteed win nights. They're doing a whole bunch of ticket packaging, great pricing. They're changing up everything that they've been doing for the last little while. And I think they're, them and BC, I feel like have kind of been the leaders the last couple of years in terms of how they've operated their teams. And that's no offense to any other team, but they're doing stuff that teams haven't done in a while. So it's good to see. And as much as I'm cheering for the Riders in this one, as a biased season ticket holder myself, I would love to see the Elks win a game. Sorry, Rider fans, if that's but I would love to see them get this one. I think it would really be a huge boost to not only their locker room, but just that fan base in general. It would be a huge one for the Elks specifically. We haven't even talked about the Riders yet.
It would be a huge one for the Elks. And with the Riders, we got to start at the quarterback position. Whom do they turn to kick off the season? But who's going to be the most stable at that position? Because anyone around football, I've been calling games for 27 years, the most important position on offense is your quarterback. So where do the Riders start?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be Trevor Harris. He was their big offseason splash, so to speak. And, former Elk himself, he played in Edmonton for a little bit. So I'm sure he'll have a lot on the line tonight, or not tonight, this weekend. He'll want to get that win under his belt. But there's a lot of guys that are coming into this team that I think, Rider fans, after a shaky year last year, there's a little bit of excitement here. They've added some offensive linemen, which is a huge concern. We're not sure where they stand right now in terms of health. Philip Blake was one of the bigger acquisitions. He's been around the league for a long time. Former Rough Rider, coming back. I don't know if he's going to be playing. It doesn't sound like it. And they signed Colin Kelly, who spent some time in the NFL, but he's suspended for 2 games at least just because of some, I think it was a steroid suspension of some kind or something along those lines. So he's out for at least 2 weeks. But once the season gets rolling and they start maybe putting some pieces into place, I think the offensive line will be stabilized, which is important. It's the last couple of years, it's been a mess.
And we talked about that with not only Montreal, but with Saskatchewan, how much of a mess the offensive line has been. Let's stay on the Saskatchewan offense. Who's going to tote the ball for him?
Yeah, so luckily for them, the Riders' running back issue, that haven't been an issue. They have a couple of guys that came in last year kind of as unknowns, but have sort of, again, I'm going to use the word stabilized because, again, it just feels like sometimes when you don't have a person in that position, it just feels like a big mess. You don't know what's going on. But they got Frankie Hickson, who he's a smaller back, and I say smaller, he's 5'8", but he's 200 pounds. He's built well, and he just seems like one of those guys that he can break any play into a touchdown at any moment. That's the kind of player he seems like. He might not be the best north and south runner, but if he gets a cut on you, Frankie Hickson is the type of guy who can break any play for 30, 40, 50 yards.
Oh, man.
But their starting guy is going to be Jamal Morrow. And again, not necessarily the biggest running back, 5'8", again, 205, so built well. But he's the type of guy who you're going to rely on to get 6 yards, 5 yards every time. And in the CFL, 5 or 6 yard averages, that's good. That's pretty good. Anything below that, with only 3 downs, and again, for Americans who might not realize, the difference is if you don't get 5 or 6 yards on a rush on your first down, it's second and long, and you're about to punt. So 5 to 6 yards on a first down on a run play is very important. So if you can't get that, like I said, and that was one of the bigger issues last year with the offensive line struggles. They couldn't seem to get the running game consistent, which led to them having to run around and try to throw out of the pocket a lot, and it wasn't working. We all know how that went last year. So this year, you bring in 37-year-old Trevor Harris, and again, he's going to be the guy. They invested a lot in him in the offseason. They do have some other quarterbacks there, and they're keeping 4 quarterbacks on the roster, which was an interesting decision. A lot of talk about that around these parts. Usually you only keep 3. Sometimes you only dress 2, the starter and a backup. But they're keeping 4, and they're not going to dress 4 every week, obviously. But some very interesting options behind Trevor Harris. Shea Patterson's a name that Americans might recognize from Michigan. He had an interesting run, I think, in the XFL or the USFL, one of the two.
USFL.
Thank you. Jake Dolegala, Central Connecticut guy, 6'7". Now, it's funny because oftentimes down south, we see 6'7", 242-pound quarterback, and you're like, okay, this guy's got the makings of quarterback.
Right.
Up north, up here, tall quarterbacks don't usually do well. And I don't know why.
No, they don't.
There hasn't been a tall quarterback in the CFL that has been successful. I think somebody said since like 2014, there was a quarterback who played the whole season, 6'6". I can't even remember his name off the top of my head. But it's been a long time. So for whatever reason in the CFL, the magic window is like 6 foot to 6'3". And if you're anywhere outside of that, it's weird. It's a weird league in that regard. But Dola Gala has shown some signs, so who knows? But Mason Fine is their other guy. He was kind of their backup last year. A guy out of North Texas, 5'11", 190. Again, kind of that magic zone in terms of CFL quarterbacks. He's just on the bottom end of it, but he's shown some signs. So anyways, Trevor Harris, I digress. He's had a lot of experience in this league as the type of guy who will calm everything down. He's a very good pocket passing quarterback. He has a little bit of athleticism, but he is 37. So we'll see how much that actually comes into play. But again, he's a very steady quarterback who's put up a lot of big number seasons. There's always been a bit of a concern about the big moment with him. And I don't want to, talk too much about that because I really respect Trevor Harris as a quarterback. I love the addition. And I think with him coming in as a veteran presence who can stabilize the offense and kind of calm things down, because last year it just seemed like every time they snapped the ball, it was panic.
Yes.
This year, if you can just calm down and keep it steady, make the plays when we need to make the plays, and just march the field. It's been a while since we've had a team that can consistently march the field. Actually, honestly, since probably Cody Fajardo's first year, it seems like, with the team. They were able to march the field lots that year, but since then, it's kind of been very inconsistent. So I'm a big fan of the addition of Trevor Harris, and I think it'll be I think it's the right move for this team. And he's here for 2 years on a 2-year deal, so year one's going to be, a good kind of a measuring stick, and then we'll see if that translates into maybe 2 years with Trevor Harris, or maybe longer, depending on how long he wants to play. But we'll find out this weekend kind of how the team's looking to at least start the season.
That's my good buddy, producer Clark, talking all things CFL. You can expect that every Friday as we break down the week before, take you into the continuing week. And man, I love having you on. I love you, brother. Thank you so very much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Always love doing it, Brian. Let's do it again next week.
We'll do it again next week. Thank you. For those of you who know producer Clark, the fabulous super producer of the Rob Peterson Show, he will join every week as part of our CFL programming. We got a new CFL show coming out where you will see this interview and a whole lot more. My time is up. Hope y'all enjoy it. Have a great weekend. God bless y'all, and I will see y'all on Monday. So long, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into The Brian Snow Show, where sports is the base, life and fun are the results.